I'm Rob, and coming up on R&B Reviews, Tim Burton goes back and does a stop-motion remake of one of his early films, Frankenweenie.
Sparky's a great dog, a great friend.
The best dog a kid could have.
Always beating your heart.
I don't want him in my heart. I want him here with me.
The nervous system is just wires and cables. Even after death, the muscles respond to electricity.
Going into Frankenweenie was pretty interesting because this is the third animated horror movie to come out just in time for Halloween. We had Paranorman, which was a fun, affectionate parody of the more current horror movies that featured something for adults and kids, and Hotel Transylvania, which featured the famous horror characters, but the movie was mostly loaded up with over-the-top jokes and gags. And Frankenweenie, it's kind of a mix of the two of them. You get a homage to the classic horror movies and TV shows from the past, including having this movie being shot in black and white, and there's also some very good twisted jokes along the way. The main character is Victor. He's a very clever, intelligent young boy who loses his dog and his best friend Sparky when he's run over by a car. But after hearing a lecture on lightning and electricity in science class, Victor decides to bring his dog back from the dead, and once he succeeds, he tries very hard to hide Sparky, but unfortunately, there's some nosy characters that come around, and it just becomes harder for him to do. Now, I was a little bit disappointed with Tim Burton's last couple of movies, Dark Shadows and Alice in Wonderland, and I think he goes back to the basics here with this film. It has a much simpler story, there's less reliance on CGI, as well as Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, and I actually cared about the characters, especially the two leading characters for the most part. Myself and others know what it's like to lose a pet, and Sparky, I think, is given a personality that we, the audience, can relate to. And Victor, he doesn't have a lot of friends, and his dad wants him to go out and try doing other things with other people, like try out for sports. I'm sure we all have gone through something in our life where we had to negotiate with our parents. The movie, it features some very dark, twisted gags, like there's a scene where the resurrected Sparky tries to drink water only to have it come out of every crevice of his body. I mean, these aren't really laugh-out-loud moments, but like, for example, like in Paranorman or Hotel Transylvania, but they are nice, quiet ones. And like the old Frankenstein movies that this movie frequently references, the film does drive home the point that while science is important, there is a boundary that should not be crossed. And the voice casting in Frankenweenie, I thought was very appropriate with each actor. There's Catherine O'Hara and Martin Short, who play multiple characters in this movie, including Victor's well-meaning parents, and Martin Landau plays Victor's science teacher. And the small town in this movie, it kind of reminded me of the small town in Edward Scissorhands, where it's just everything is just plain and boring and ordinary until something very unusual occurs there. One of the problems that I did have with Frankenweenie was the film references as the film progressed. I mean, it seemed as the movie went on, it seemed to heavily rely on them. I mean, in the beginning, you got to see some very nice, subtle visuals, visual references, like Victor's classmates have a passing resemblance to many of them, like there's the Hunchback, and there's a girl that looks like she came from Village of the Damned, and there's a kid that looks and speaks like Boris Karloff, and that's fine, but unfortunately by the time we get to the third act of the movie, without giving too much of the story away, it involves Victor's classmates trying to up Victor's experiments. It just, at this point in the movie, it just seemed to be relying too much, and it feels kind of forced and shoot in as a result. I mean, it's all right to pay tribute to these films, but I've seen a lot of those story elements used as, parody as well as, straight story elements, and unfortunately, at that point in the movie, it just became a little bit too familiar and cliche to me. I mean, at times, I felt like Burton was really trying to fill the remaining time here. I mean, I really liked the story with Victor and Sparky. It was just more creativity was involved in that storyline, and it was more relatable. Frankenweenie, it's not quite as good as Burton's best films like Edward Scissorhands or Ed Wood, but I think he's heading back in the right direction. Now, I'm not really too sure I can recommend it to real little kids since there are some scary images, and I know a story about resurrecting a pet is going to be a hard sell for some parents, but I did enjoy some of it, and I do wish that the movie just didn't overdo it on the horror film references later in the movie, making it used as a crutch in the last act of the film. So it's a good movie. It does have its problems, but I think it's probably one of Tim Burton's better films in the recent years. So I give it a mild see it in theaters rating. So that's my review of the movie. If you would like to leave any comments you have about the video or about the movie if you have seen it, please go ahead and do so. And thank you very much for watching. If you want to look at reviews of other movies that are out in theaters or out on DVD, feel free to go check out our other reviews. So again, thank you very much for watching.